There has been, believe it or not, some of you do and some of you don't, actually. I know this to be true. There has been clamoring in the comments section for more Points League content. And I, every once in a while, say, look, we're doing it. And today's one of those days where I'm like throwing a bone. I got to do a better job of this. But in the meantime, a bone you shall have. Welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Besbris. Follow at Dan Besbris on Twitter. Follow at Old Man Squad on Twitter as well. And today we are joined by one of my good buddies and a man who is always a massive, massive pleasure to have on the show because he allows me to just relax and enjoy myself. The great Robbin Marx at Believe in Fantasy. Good morning, my Points League buddy. Well, I got to come up with a better nickname. That was awful.
We need something. We need to copyright something. And you know what? Listen, it is my freaking honor to be here to talk Points Leagues. And I love that people are clamoring in the comments. That absolutely warms my heart. So I'm going to open up with a song, Dan. Is that okay?
That's the best.
You ready?
Yeah.
Points leagues. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Points leagues. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Points leagues. I was gonna do the little part. Hold up. Points leagues presented by Old Man Squad.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in on you there. I gotta say, you can carry a tune, man.
Hey, Dan, in another life, I was a musician. So I don't wield my musical sword freely. Just know I only do that for a select few.
I can hear it. So and I can tell the difference between a joker like me who can get close to a tune and someone who is actually hitting the proper notes in doing it in a voice too. You were doing the bad boys.
I had a character going on. And you know what? I used to sing in the choir when I was a little kid.
I can hear it, man.
Hey.
You got what's the line from it's from Step Brothers? Oh God, I gotta look it up while we're doing a show. Again, talking to Robbin Marx at Believe in Fantasy at Robbin Marx on social. He's got Points League sleepers for you guys today. The wheel is yours. I know you've got a few names that you really wanted to deep dive. So let's, grab the wheel and let's rock. Where are we headed first?
Old Man Squad, buckle up your seatbelts and get ready for takeoff. So I'll start by saying this. I've done some sleeper episodes. Sleeper episodes are like a part of fantasy sports, right? Fantasy football, fantasy baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever. I don't know if they talk fantasy sleepers in cricket, but I'm sure they have their equivalent of it, right?
They should.
They should. With that said, I feel like in the fantasy basketball space, because we are such an analytical bunch and we are such a statistic-driven bunch, that sleepers, the definition of sleepers has kind of morphed a little bit in the fantasy world compared to maybe the way it's defined in fantasy football specifically. I'm not so familiar with fantasy baseball. And what I mean is, Dan, most in fantasy football, unless you're an absolute sicko, right? But most in fantasy football, when they think about sleepers, they think about the guys that people aren't talking about, not necessarily people who will outperform their ADP or, produce more than what you pay, right? So I think for this episode, I want to take it to the roots of the sleeper. We're not going to talk about anybody who's been top 100 or smelled like they were top 100. We're going to talk about folks who are deep in the crates. We're going to dig. And again, I have a bunch of guys I want to talk about, but the three that we'll really talk about deeply, more people should talk about them. And I'm really excited about the episode.
So this, again, just as a preface to everyone, just to make sure, because Rob and I are having a laugh at the beginning, and I realized that perhaps my intro may have gotten lost in the shuffle. We're talking Points League deep dive guys. These are the dudes that folks are missing. This is true sleepers. And listen, I'm guilty of it too, because sometimes you got to go, search engine optimize your deal. And sometimes folks talk about sleepers and they're like, here's a guy that I'm taking at 95. It's like, that's an 8th rounder. That's not a sleeper. And I don't know that there even really are in category leagues true sleepers anymore, because there's a lot of really good info out there, but there's not that much on Points League. You are, Robbin, kind of swimming in a very wide ocean right now. Yeah, he's got his I believe that's just a traditional swimming stroke.
Yeah. I
didn't
just
want
made it up.
you to do the butterfly or the breaststroke or whatever.
Hold
We
on.
had yeah, we're drowning.
Just drowning.
The Olympics were on recently. We saw all these things, but I don't remember what they're called. So that's what we're profiling on today's show. Again, a lot of people have been asking, Dan, do you do points league stuff? And the answer is generally no, but that's why I have good folks like you on to talk about it. So who is our sneaky hidden sleeper number one?
All right. So, and I also want to make sure I set the expectations. You've probably heard of these players, but again, I'm not hearing people talk about them enough as sleepers. So, I'm not gonna go into the 500s. I'm not gonna.
No.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna talk about Markel Fultz right now.
Unsigned.
I'm not gonna talk about any unsigned players or guys who are playing overseas currently. But I will come in super hot. I'm gonna come in super hot fire, and I'm gonna talk about my main man, Rob Dillingham from the Minnesota Timberwolves. He is a rookie. If you've never heard of him, get familiar, add him into your queue, and draft him in the later rounds. Let's talk a little bit about Rob. So, first of all, just to give you some context, when I was growing up watching basketball, we didn't really know about high school players until they got into the draft or until they came into the league. So, for example, Kevin Garnett. I didn't really hear about Kevin Garnett until his senior year. Kobe Bryant. I didn't really hear about him until his senior year. And LeBron is maybe the exception. I knew about him maybe his sophomore, junior year. I'm not sure. But when he got that Sports Illustrated cover is when I was aware of him and most of the public was, right? So, and I want you to chime in on this, Dan, before we go into Rob. But for me, it feels like in this era of social media, in this era of being in the digital age, that we are able to dive deeper into players at an earlier point of their career. Rob Dillingham, for example, my son has been following Rob Dillingham since he was like entering high school, coming in from middle school to high school. And I used to be like, that's weird. I was like, that's what y'all do? until the kid ended up going to play for Donda Academy, which is one of Kanye West's ventures. He had a school that was really focused on basketball players and stuff like that. He performed well there and built up his name, and then he ended up playing in OTE, Overtime Elite. I'm here in the Atlanta area, and we try our best to check out a few OTE games a year. It's an amazing product, but also they're building these kids up where other kids are in class and then they have practice after school. They're working out all day and they sneak class in. So it's a farm. Yeah, it's a farm for next level NBA talent, whether it's Asar, Amin Thompson, and now Rob Dillingham. So really quick, what do you say to that, Dan, about the idea of folks seeing players younger now with the internet?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I typically don't. And I think that's just sort of how I've chosen to attack it, because in 9-Cat, rookies typically are not very good. But the things that hold them down in 9-Cat are the things that are generally underweighted in points league format. So percentages, turnovers, things of that nature. So these guys that have these massive issues with shooting, or, thinking about end of season Scoot Henderson last year. I was just doing a show on second year guys, and I didn't even realize that over the last season, he averaged 6 turnovers a game, and he averaged 5.5 turnovers a game for the last month last year. And in 9-Cat, that's brutal. That is like losing a category all by yourself type of numbers. But in points leagues, doesn't matter. These types of guys, there is actually, I think, probably a greater impetus to watch these young dudes coming in or earlier for people who play points leagues, because the things they stink at don't really matter as much. Does that feel accurate?
Yeah, I think so. I love that. And I think and for me, just in terms of covering OTE and stuff, I've stayed away just because I feel a little weird. Like
you're an old man.
Yeah, I'm like a grown man coming to the game and I got like a notepad. I'm like, all right, like I don't want to be that. I'm not covering OTE, right? But it's interesting to know that we have a product out there that can give you a glimpse into what who some of that young talent is. So let's talk about Rob. After he left OTE, he went and signed with Kentucky. Coach Calipari is a guy who like grooms people to be NBA talent. So in his rookie season, in his freshman year, he didn't start. But the man averaged 15.2 points per game in college. Let that sink in. 3.9 assists, 2.9 rebounds, and 1 steal a game, 2 threes a game, and all in 23.3 minutes per game. He is the definition of a microwave scorer. And in Minnesota, where I'm really glad he got drafted by Minnesota and not the Spurs, because in that situation, the expectations maybe are a little lower because they have a successful team, a team that's knocking on the door, right? And if given that 6-man role, which I think would be the pathway to value, is if somehow by midseason he could sneak his way in to the 6-man role, I think that's where he will thrive. I don't know if Mike Conley went down and they threw him into the starting position. I don't know how he would perform, right? He's a really light guy. I think he's like 170 pounds, but I think if he was put in that 6-man position, that he would definitely be a steal if you get him at the back end of your drafts.
So this is, do you think he's going to have value right out of the chute, or do you think there's going to be a little bit of a waiting game?
It's going to be a little bit of a waiting game. And I think watching him in summer league, even it seemed like he had to warm up to the game a little bit, but he had a decent summer league. I don't have the summer league numbers in front of me, but I did have the opportunity, because my son is a huge fan, right, to watch a couple of his summer league games. And he looked good, and he did the things that we expect of him. He's not a pass first point guard. He is a score first point guard. And I think it will take him time to just kind of adjust to the physicality of the league, to the speed of the league. But overall, I think especially if we're talking late rounds, he's definitely one of those guys you want to queue up. Maybe it's because I've been speaking so highly of him. I'm seeing him go in mock drafts a little earlier than he should.
Interesting.
Yeah, people are grabbing him, 12th round, a 13th round in a 15-round draft. So I'm like, I don't know if that's me or if it's people are really believing. But again, with those later round picks, you want to make sure that you're swinging for the fences on a couple of hits. And I think he's a guy that if everything lines up correctly, that he could be a huge asset to your squad.
That's awesome. Talking to Robbin Marx of Believe in Fantasy. Again, you can find him on both of those social media spots and his show, Believe in Fantasy. Dude, so I got to make sure that because when I say things, people are like, oh, he's clowning on other people. No, what I'm saying right now is exclusively straight up compliment to you. I love your energy. I love everything that you do, and everybody else should be checking him out as well. Robbin, where you want to go next?
Man, I want to come to California, have a drink with you, but I can't do that.
Well, right now I'm just drinking water out of this beat up old Cal Bears mug. So
I got coffee. Cheers. I got coffee. No, but thank you for your kind words, Dan. It means a lot to me because, I really a huge fan of your content over the years. So to be here is an absolute dream for me, and anything I can do to provide laser focus value for my points league sickos, then I'm here to do that for them.
Well, I have anything but a laser focus on my show.
I'm here for you.
All over the map. Thank you for redirecting me. No, but and again, I don't want to get too far down this side road, but my biggest thing in all of broadcasting, and anybody that's talked to me about play-by-play podcasting, whatever, is joy. Make it so make people feel your fun, whatever you're doing. If you feel like if you start to sound like you're in a dentist waiting office, that comes through, and we're talking about sports. And
yes,
that, Robbin, is why to me, that's the big reason that I gravitate to things that you do, is because you're clearly having fun and we can all feel that. So you're doing awesome. Everybody should be checking it out. But I don't want to spend the entire show complimenting you. I can do that at the very end.
We should do an episode.
Yeah, I know. But dude, you're so much fun to listen to. Even here is just talking about players. You can feel the passion. Who is deep sleeper number 2?
Okay, so I want to say that we're going a little higher, and the last person I'll talk about in this 3 tier, many have spoken about, but I just have to do it. But this guy, people are talking about him, but for the wrong reasons. He's made some mistakes off the court that many would consider nasty work.
Uh-oh. Oh, now
And
I'm really nervous.
we have players who make mistakes and get charges and things happen all the time. But for this particular player, it seems like his mistakes off the court have influenced and impacted his potential value on the court. The player that I'm talking about right now is Mr. Kevin Porter.
Oh, that one hurts. That one hurts me so. All right, you're going to have to talk me into this one.
There we go. So I'll start by saying that Kevin Porter Jr. has averaged a double digits, has averaged double digits in scoring every year of his freaking career. So I'll start there. 2019-20, 10 points per game. 2020-21, 16.6 points per game. 21-22, 15.6 points. And check this out. In 2022, 2023, he averaged 19.2 points per game. So I asked myself, what are we doing here? Like, yes, morally, I am not trying to hang out with Kevin Porter Jr. I'm not bringing him to church with me on Sunday, Dan. I'm not.
No.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go to the club with him. I don't want none of those vibes. However, where some people, he's not even going in some mock drafts that I'm seeing. I'm like, is he around? Like, are people even paying attention? So let's talk about his situation. He's going to be playing for the Clippers this year, right? And with the departure of Paul George, with the departure of Russell Westbrook, there's going to be a lot of changes. Currently, he sits third on the depth chart for point guard behind Harden and Chris Dunn, right? For shooting guard, he's also sitting third on the depth chart behind Terrence Mann and Norman Powell. That means nothing. If he goes off a game and Tyronn Lue feels and sees it, he don't care what his charges were, where he sits on a depth chart, he will get some run. Now, will he get to 19.2 points per game? I don't think so. But I think he can produce. I think he's a rosterable player if he can get 20 minutes a game, 22 minutes a game. And if an injury happens, which we're talking about the Clippers, right? And knock on wood, because I would never wish an injury on anyone, right? But Kawhi Leonard, he don't play. Like, he played last season for most of the year, but when the daggone fantasy playoffs came around, where was he? And unless you like Dan and you playing Roto, he's killing you when you need him the most. So with that being said, I am all in on grabbing Kevin Porter Jr. in those later rounds to just see if we can get a spark, a little hint of who he used to be on the fantasy basketball court.
So I'm going to put my blinders on for a minute and just look at the numbers. And he is one of those players that has historically been a lot better in points leagues than in 9-cat. His big deficiencies, he is a 43% field goal guy. He is a 73% free throw guy. And he's averaged almost 3 turnovers a game during his career. If you wipe those out, he's at 2 threes for his career, 15, 4, and 5 with a steal. Just looking at the numbers and not looking at the name, and I'm doing my very best to do so right now, after I said all these nice things about you, Robbin, you're telling me I got to go to Kevin Porter Jr. Absolutely killing me here at the 19-minute mark. His numbers in points leagues historically have been very, very good. So to that end, yes. I'm going to take this now down the moral path just for a minute. How do you reconcile having him on your fantasy team and also not really rooting for him? Because I don't really I'd rather see almost everybody else on the Clippers succeed before him, even if he puts up better fantasy numbers.
Yes. And that's a good question. And I I've had this, especially with the Miles Bridges situation the last couple of years. This is a topic that's come up, and I am typically on both sides of the fence, especially early when the incidents occur and the I guess the context of whatever charges or allegations. So I always go by saying, like, I denounce any violence. I denounce any violence against women, right? So I always say that. But when I think about fantasy basketball, right, just because I draft a guy and I take his points and add it to my, my team's production, doesn't mean that I support their beliefs. There are probably tons of NBA players who do things that you do not agree with. Some
Yeah,
publicly,
almost definitely.
some privately, and some like a Kevin Porter Jr. or maybe a Miles Bridges, we've highlighted publicly, and that wasn't of their choice, right? So for me, I try to keep it fantasy when it's fantasy, in terms of like watching the games and rooting for them. Like, I want my team to win. So I'm not hoping that, Kevin Porter Jr. can be an influence and spread his message of whatever guilt or innocence he has. But I would say for my team, I want to make sure that I position myself to have the best players available.
Yeah, compartmentalize basically. And it's not always easy, but that's the goal there. Give me number 3, because I know you said you had 3 guys you really wanted to deep dive, and I don't want to run out of time.
Yep. Then the last guy is someone that we've talked about more in the fantasy community, also more in on Reddit or wherever you go to like talk fantasy. But I had to bring him up here. I'm talking about Isaiah Hartenstein. So
I love him so much.
Yeah, and he's going higher and higher. One thing I wanted to point out for folks, because not everyone is sold. He might be somebody that you need to reach for a little bit, and I'll tell you why. So first of all, in most cases, general managers and teams don't pay people big bucks unless they intend on utilizing them. Whether they flop, that's up to the player or the situation. But Sam Presti is a guy who knows his stuff, right? So for me, 3 years, $87 million contract with 58.5 guaranteed says that he'll get some run. According to hashtag basketball with the Yahoo settings, he finished at 117 for points leagues last year, outside of the 100. So I stay true to that. These guys are typically outside of the top 100, but check out his numbers from last year. 26 minutes a game. He played 75 games. So you're getting durability there, right? Like Joel Embiid is great. And I know people are drafting Joel Embiid. I know you had an episode about this, Dan. Like, should we draft Joel? It's a thing, right?
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. So think about this. Would I rather have 15 games of Joel Embiid or 75 games of Isaiah Hartenstein? And that's kind of my logic, is like, durability counts. Like, we can't guarantee it, but like this kind of stuff makes sense to me. He averaged 7 points a game, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.2 steals, 1.1 blocks. All of that will add up to value. But here is the kicker. Him getting that contract and going to a situation where they want to win. In New York, they did not give him the minutes that maybe he needed to really produce. I think his minutes are going to increase. So if they can get to 29, 30, oh my goodness. I think that the opportunity for him to really break through and have a $87 million season is on the table.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in massive agreement with you, and he's going to be a world beater in 9-cat. How does his 9-cat game translate to the points league side for the folks that, like myself, who don't play a ton of points leagues? We look at him and we're like, oh, this guy didn't score that much, so how does he make up for that? But it sounds like sort of the aggregate of all of the things he does together still creates a really nice points league player.
Yep. So in a points league, I think this is something we've talked about before, but I want to just kind of run it back and spin the block on it. When we say points leagues, a lot of newcomers to the game think about points. So they're like, oh, it's a points league. He just got to score points. Yeah, that part is important. However, what's really important is the same statistical categories that we look at in terms of their contributions for their assists, blocks, steals, all of those things, minus maybe turnovers, depending on your settings. Some settings have penalties for turnovers, but really like the counting stats, right, that they get when they're on the court. Each one has a different value. So, for example, for Yahoo standard leagues, it's 3 points for a block, 3 points for a steal. So if you have a player like Isaiah Hartenstein, who is going to probably average a little under or a double-double this season, you're going to get those points. But then when you look at that steal a game, or you look at that block per game, that just increases his value. So that would be my biggest thing for points leagues players, especially if it's people from category leagues that are like, I want to try this. What is all the fuss about? That's something that could kind of almost like offset the insane aggressive nature of having to keep up with 9-cat. Maybe it's something that kind of relaxes you a little bit and allows you to kind of just focus on the basics. So I would say make sure that you don't just look at how many points they score. Still be mindful of those other categories.
You've got a lightning round list. Before we get to that, Robbin, promo time. What you working on, my man?
What am I working on? Man, I think, Dan, I want to get on a consistent points league show with you monthly. That's what I want to work on. I think you and I need offline. We need to work on that because
done deal.
This I think is necessary, and I am super excited about being one of the people who are leading the charge on this points league.
Yeah, it's you and Jacob, man. You and Jacob Dunn. You are my points league guys.
Yep, and I think I'd like to have a meeting, maybe me, you, and Jacob. I think that would be cool too.
That would be awesome, actually. Get like a almost like a points league summit. Plus, a meeting like that, a show like that. You know what I have to do on a show like that? Nothing. It's my favorite shows to run.
You're like, all right, I'm gonna just get off the screen now.
Yep. It's like, go ahead, guys. See you in a bit.
Yeah, but other than that, just gearing up for the season. Every Sunday night at 11 p.m., we're conducting live mock drafts. We're live on YouTube. We're live on X. So if you want to be a part of one of those mock drafts, all you have to do is join our Discord community of over 2,000 points league fanatics, where you can come on, like hang out, we'll talk junk. And to join the Discord, all you have to do is visit BelieveInFantasy.com. And the other thing I'm working on, I just recently did a TEDx talk, which I'm trying to get more and more people to just go watch and share. It's not related to fantasy or basketball, but it's something that I think will bring any and everyone value if they take time to check it out. And to see that, all you have to visit is bit.ly/TEDx Talk Robbin with 1B.
I watched it, by the way, from start to finish. It was awesome. It has immediately changed the way that I say goodbye to my family when we all go off to start our days. I'll just say that right there. So, folks, if you have an opportunity to check that out, I would strongly recommend that as well. Just something to, I don't know, kind of center your mind a little bit. It's so easy to get caught up in the whirlwind day-to-day. And before we came on air, I was telling you, Robbin, about that my days turned into an absolute, like someone stick of Acme brand TNT into the middle of my day and just blew it to smithereens. That was a Roadrunner and Coyote joke there for the show. But just thinking about taking a moment to step back and think about like the way you part from people was what was my big takeaway from your talk, was to say, okay, I got all these crazy things going on in my life, but my wife and my son just went off to work/elementary school. I'm here with the little one. I got to take a second, take a deep breath, and give a real proper farewell to those two people in my family. Have a great day at work. Have an amazing day at school, because it's so easy to just be like, yeah, get out of here. Go. Bye. Because you're getting to the next thing. Everything's always about the next thing. So just things to slow your brain down. Appreciate the things that matter. Everybody should check out that talk. Robbin, hit me with the lightning round before I let you go.
Let's do it. So we calling this group of players the usual suspects if you are a sicko. So Dereck Lively is somebody that's coming up a lot and moving up the draft board. Brandin Podziemski, another one that is moving on up. Trayce Jackson Davis, boy, he is moving up fast. And then Keyonte George. Now this one, the next guy I want to talk about is someone that is plummeted year after year, and now a player that we all looked at that maybe had some value. It's almost like it's perceived he has no value. And I'm talking about Andrew Wiggins. If you didn't know, Andrew Wiggins lost his pops. His father passed away. God rest his soul. Former Houston Rockets player Mitchell Wiggins. So I don't know if he's going to play with a chip on his shoulder this year. Clay is gone. Someone needs to step up. So I think, again, in peace to Andrew Wiggins, his pops, and condolences to his family. But I think in terms of fantasy, don't ignore the man. I think that he might have some value, especially with Clay leaving town. A couple players that are long overdue, and we've been waiting. First one, Onyeka Okongwu. I mean, if I go, this guy's gonna be 35, and we're still gonna be like, it's coming. Capella's getting traded.
I
Right?
know it. I know it. The year's
It's like,
2032.
how the heck?
Oh.
How did we get here? I'm saying I have been on the hilltop about Okongwu for it feels like for my entire fantasy basketball career. It seems like I've been here. Let's give him one more year, y'all. Like Atlanta,
One more.
Atlanta, do what's right. Get Clint Capella out of town and let us unleash Onyeka Okongwu. The other long overdue guy is OG Anunoby. Now I know there's a lot of mouths to feed in New York, especially with the full reunification of the Villanova boys. But I think that OG Anunoby has a really great fantasy game. And I think in points leagues, what he lacks for in actual points, he makes up for in other areas. So I'll be looking out for him. And of course, in honor of the old man squad, we got to talk about Chris Paul. Somebody is in the weeds, and some people are smart enough to grab him. Some are just letting him drop. Listen, the guy's going to get run. They're going to lean on his leadership. And if he can stay healthy, he could shift the entire outlook of your season. 2 more sections. We got the second-year leaps, Taylor Hendricks and Jaime Jaquez Jr., 2 guys I'm keeping a lookout for. Rookies, Zach Edey, Reed Shepard, and last but not least, my anti-sleeper sleepers. Anti-sleeper sleepers. People that we need to continue to sleep on and do not wake them up in a very non-morbid death way, right? In a life way, just let them sleep somewhere else. Give them a cot. First guy, Ben Simmons. I've heard people say he's a sleeper. He is not a sleeper. He's an anti-sleeper sleeper. Do yourself a favor. Draft Rob Dillingham. Like, call upside, right? Upside. Not dark side, right? Like, stay away from Ben Simmons. And the last guy, my final anti-sleeper sleeper is Lonzo Ball. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to I don't want to wait on it or hope on it. I just want to stay away from it. And I recommend that you do the same. That's all.
That was awesome. That was perfect. I could not ask for anything more. He is at Robbin Marx on social media, ROBBINMARX at Believe in Fantasy, BLEAVIN, and then the word fantasy. I'm going to trust you guys can all spell that one yourself. Robbin, you are the freaking man. Thank you so much, as always, for bringing the joy, bringing the energy. Let's do this again soon, yeah?
Yes, sir. Let's try to do it every month. Let's connect.
That was the marvelous Robbin Marx at Robbin Marx on Twitter, ROBBINMARX, or Believe in Fantasy, bringing you the points league sleepers, some of them very, very deep, and 2 anti-sleepers. I mean, get the hell off of these guys before the sky falls on your head. That actually brings us to the end of this particular program. Coming up later today, we will likely do a mock draft. We haven't done one in a few days, and everybody's like, are we doing one today? Well, today, yeah, probably. Follow at Dan Besbris and at Old Man Squad on Twitter. Make sure to like, rate, and subscribe. We cleared 2,000 today in record time. So hugs and kisses to all of you, and a big, big thank you to Robbin Marx, who also has been quietly giving some good ideas to me and what I should be and how I can achieve my goals faster as well. He's a good dude, man. You guys got to follow Robbin if you're playing Points League. And frankly, you should just follow Robbin for good life advice in general. That would be another smart move. But again, we're done. That's it. Check out all those names. Points League content. I did it. Now you can all get off my back. All right, guys. I'm Dan. I'll see you guys in a little bit. So long for now.